I got a question for you. All right. Do you feel like you live too much in the past?
I try not to, personally.
Okay. And then, how much preparation do you do for the future? Like,
Honestly, a lot. I mean, the future is always a big focus of mine, trying to make sure that I'm financially stable for the future, stuff like that.
and then is that all worth it if you're suffering in the present?
No, definitely not. I mean, definitely kind of does. It's hard. Makes every day hard.
I feel that is what is White Knight. This is Batman White Knight in review. There we go.
There you go.
All right, now you're here. Now you can start doing the background
Yes.
info.
All right. So background info. Awesome. Let's go. All right. So Batman White Knight released in 2017. It is now a full series. It started Batman White Knight, went on to Batman Curse the White Knight, Batman Beyond the White Knight, and then several like tie-in stories, including like Von Freeze, Harley Quinn, Red Hood, stuff like that. Obviously, if you want to go into like the chronological order, start with White Knight, go to Curse the White Knight. Von Freeze is kind of be read in there as well. Then after that, it's the Harley story, and then you get Beyond, and then the Red Hood. It can be read in.
If you want to get real into the gritty of things, I think it's issues 6 and 7 that you read Von Freeze in between. You're
Yes.
welcome.
Yes, it is a little more detailed. Obviously, fucking bullshit. God damn it.
Dude, how many times are you going to say
I know. I'm having a hard time today. Fuck.
Yeah, all right, hang on. All right, tag me in, coach. All right, so, yep, chronological order, we just went through that. Everything is known as this amazing name that I absolutely love called the it's spreading. The Murphyverse. The Murphyverse. It's not set in main continuity. And then I had to ask him before the recording started, what does Elseworlds mean?
Yeah, it's just like an overarching like title for a story that doesn't exist in main continuity. So like DC Vampires, that'd be an Elseworld story.
Okay, gotcha. And then, all right, you think you could do the interesting tidbits?
I can.
All right, I
absolutely.
believe in you.
So when Sean Murphy actually revealed the project for White Knight, he went ahead and kind of gave a whole bunch of like rules and kind of guidelines that he wanted to follow. Those include like any character that dies cannot be revived. There can be no internal monologues. The series can't be rushed. The authors of the books must have their primary focus of pleasing the readers. And then there must be at least one vehicle in each comic. That could be the Batmobile, the Batwing, etc.
That is a very interesting take on that.
It is, and especially like when you guys start reading them, like there's so many different variations of Batmobile that they show off a lot, which is really neat.
And especially in these like issues of the White Knight that we're talking about in particular, there's like near the ending, there we'll get more into it, but there's like a crud ton of variety of. I just hit my mouse on the table, but a variety of Batmobiles that we'll get to see.
And then no series may cross over with another, despite taking place in the same shared universe. That one's a little interesting in my opinion. So like, the plan obviously is to focus on Batman and his supporting cast, but there have been hints at like Superman and the Justice League, but they're not meant to cross over, which I think is interesting.
Oh, okay, that's what they meant by crossover.
Yeah,
like,
that's why it's down there.
I don't know how I feel about that, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. And then I remember you talking about how the fact that you were like, hey, make sure you cite your sources. And I was like, man, this one's kind of a pain because I went through back to the article where I found it originally, and it's like a comic book review thing. I can't remember the exact website name, but pretty much they had taken from the old tweets that have been since deleted, but looking at archival tweets, they are real. So
Okay, so you had to like use the Wayback Machine and
yes,
stuff.
I did.
Oh gosh.
I did. It was kind of a pain, but
Hey, you cited your sources.
I did. Obviously, one of my favorite parts of the series is just like the geometric art style, which is like something you'll very much kind of see as we start throwing panels in and everything, is that a lot of like the body shapes are very lined, where it's kind of a straight line across like his shoulders. It's not very organic circles and stuff.
It really makes an interesting look at it, an interesting take, because the overall art, let's be honest, if you're reading a comic book, you're looking at the art. The overall art sets a very interesting tone for it, very complex.
100%. I agree. Like, this art style is actually one of my favorites. I love even the bat symbol, like how just straight lined it is. It's not super detailed, but it's a good sets it off to its own thing, you know.
And then all right, let's hop right into it. Let's get into the actual story. And like the story begins with Batman chasing Joker across the town, doing their same old antics. Joker's always talk about how this point he's talking about how it's like a stage has been set. Let's do these dramatic scenes and stuff because it's just a cycle on repeat over and over again.
Yeah, 100%. Actually, like one of the things I do want to talk about is like the design of the Joker as well, right here at the beginning, especially the kind of crop toppy shirt, the suspenders, the roller skates. A very interesting design, but it definitely like gives off Joker vibes, like 100%. Like I would not assume it was the Joker, you know?
It was good. I like it. It's kind of weird, and also he outruns the entire Batmobile. I want to point
Yes.
that out. Like, he never talks about having superhuman feats or anything like that, but he is zooming.
Yes, he does very much. He's just on, like, I think they're rocket powered roller skates or something, and he's just going. He's just running. And he's going on top of buildings and stuff. And the thing is that, like, the bigger arcing problem here is that Batman's just following him, no matter what, no matter the danger.
So, and speaking of no matter what, no matter the danger, there is a specific scene in this that really kind of sets the tone for how the Bat family kind of works with each other, or doesn't work with each other, because there's this bridge that Batman's going to hop over, and Barbara's like, this fucking bridge is going up, we can't do that, and Batman just puts the pedal to the metal, he does not care.
Absolutely. There's actually even a few more scenes, like when he's on the roof and everything, too. Like, Barbara is just yelling at him, like, hey, stop, what about the people? And Bruce is just not hearing her whatsoever.
And this whole concept of Batman is really interesting because most of the Batmans that you see, like, for example, we just got done doing Batman Year One at this point. Batman Year One was all about the people. And
Yes.
so there's a scene where he's on a balcony, he knocks someone off, he's trying to save that person, prioritizing that person's life over his own, and he keeps getting beaten up by the two other guys that are on the balcony as well. But this Batman just, he assumes he knows everything. He has this moral righteousness that is, I am the law.
Yes, 100%. Because, like, even there's that scene where they go through the construction site, and, like, he is barely missing the construction workers. And even Nightwing has to come in and pull the workers out of the way.
There is also one point in that where they slow down, things start to slow down because Joker runs into a building. So Batman goes up to someone and tries to figure out where he's gone. And like you said, Nightwing had to go help him out. But he is just thrown aside by Batman. Batman, in this story, is a lot more of, I'm on the side of vengeance rather than justice.
100%. And then, like, the dialogue between Joker and Batman in the actual warehouse is very interesting because, like, Joker's like, oh, your relationship works so well, it's so amazing, and then you kind of get the dialogue. Batman's like, we have no relationship.
There was a lot of unyielding sexual tension from one of those, and I did not know how to feel about it. And then I think at that point he offers the pills, and he's like, yo, I can be perfect. I can show you that you're actually the villain here. And
yeah, because it's while Batman's pummeling the shit out of him, and Joker's like, hey, hear me out. Just let me take these pills. And then, yeah, Batman just 100% is like, all right, you want pills? Literally rips open his mouth to shove pills down his mouth.
I'm like, that's the only way you take pills, bro. That's me when I'm taking NyQuil.
And, like, the interesting thing, kind of like the problem, obviously, is that, like, everyone is watching Bruce do this.
Well, from the past, Bruce has never done anything like this. In the past, he's just been the hero that everyone needed, the hero that no one deserved. And now he's slowly slipping because a lot of things are kind of pressuring on him, which includes Alfred. Alfred is arguably the pretty biggest chess piece in the fall of Batman, which he is currently dying. I can't remember the exact reason, but he is not doing hot.
Yeah, I can't remember either off the top of my head, but
He's got cancer.
Like, cause, yeah, we see him pour the pills down, and then somebody records it, the news outlets get it, and it's kind of back and forth, and everyone's like, well, did Batman do the right thing because Joker's a bad guy? And it's very interesting watching that dynamic where everybody like, well, is he going too far? Is he outside of the law now?
So,
and then at this point, you kind of start to see what happens with these pills.
Yeah. What happens with these pills make things very, very interesting because Joker isn't Joker anymore. We get to see a lot more of who he was beforehand, which is Jack Napier. Or, I don't know if that's how you pronounce his last name. That's how I pronounce
it's Napier.
Comic books don't have audio, so.
You're right. But yeah, so you kind of start to see him turning into Jack, and hold on, I'm a little behind. Sorry,
Dude, what? All right, I'm coming to clutch again.
I will cut things.
The whole all these issues are about the righteousness of Batman versus Jack Napier, who is trying to do everything lawfully. It's arguably, when I sat down and I went through the story, we were looking at it from a different perspective, and then I started going through it, skimming through each one again, and I found a consistency. Like, it's literally highlighted in the notes because I was just so dumbfounded when I figured this out. It's something so simple, but the whole story is all about trying to move on from the past. Batman refuses to move on from the past. He refuses to get rid of anything that's going on, which will also be talked about in later when we continue discussing this, but he refuses to let go of the past. Jack Napier will always be Joker. He will always do everything that he can to stop the Joker. And then Jack Napier is trying to let go of who he once was, the Joker, so that way he, still genuinely believing that Batman is the root of the problems, because he's not entirely wrong. He knows more things. He's trying to get rid of this past so that way they can move forward.
Oh, yeah, and another detail about Batman not wanting to let go of the past is Alfred himself. Alfred's dying, but Bruce is working with Mr. Freeze to keep him alive. He refuses to let go of Alfred.
I always felt that story was out of place, kind of, because when it's introduced, it talks to him about, yes, I was helping with Mr. Freeze. Dick and Babs get upset with him. They're like, why would you do this? And they talk about how they were trying to make a deal where they could both profit. I just slammed my mouse into the table again.
Yeah, because all Mr. Freeze wants is obviously to save his wife, Nora, because she has, I can't remember what disease it is, but pretty much that's why she's frozen ice, because if she doesn't,
she has
she'll
space
die.
AIDS.
Pretty much, yes. She'll
Or
just
freeze
die.
AIDS.
And then,
One thing.
Who did I should write this down?
I'm going to start a counter on how many times you.
I am going to say and I'm going to pause so many times.
Just
I will
follow the lines, bro. So, anyways, I got you again. Don't you worry. So, this story, when I first read it, it just didn't feel flowy. Like, the way I was looking at it, I was like, okay, why do we have this whole section here? And then I realized that it was just another person trying to pursue the past that they have once again. Mm-hmm. I'm probably, as many times as you're going to say or shit
you're gonna
or
say
whatever,
the past. Yeah.
I'm going to be saying the past, because the whole thing is that Mr. Freeze will not let go of this past. So that is why his desperation, I think that's why they kind of have a mutual understanding, and that's why they're willing to work with each other, is they both kind of know what they're going through in some instances. I mean, to be fair, I don't think Bruce had a secret affair with Alfred. I really hope not, and I really don't want to read that, but it's just trying to let go of that past.
No, I agree. And so it's definitely interesting kind of watching that dynamic between the Bat family and Batman during all of this, because Dick and Babs are just angry. They don't understand what Bruce is doing, and Bruce just doesn't want to listen to anyone.
You want to know why? You want to know why?
Because his moral compass is gone.
No,
Alfred's gone.
no. I'm going to say it funny. Because they have let go of the past. Just kidding. Dick hasn't. Dick is pissed.
Yeah, Dick is very much angry in this one, and it's kind of a fun, different take as well. Because normally Nightwing is always happy-go-lucky, like, haha, look at my butt, you know? But currently he's just like, God, fuck you, Batman, fuck you.
We'll get more into that a little bit later, but there's definitely a very interesting reason why. And speaking of getting more into that later, we're going to get more into the Harley side of the story. Mm-hmm. Because though this story does a really good job of representing two sides of the same coin. They're both, Batman and Jake Napier are both fighting for the justice of Gotham. Mm-hmm. The problem is that one of them is more than willing to take a step forward, meanwhile one refuses to go anywhere but backwards.
Yes. And like one of the things you do see kind of still in issue 1 is just all the time that Jack is spending just researching and building a case against Gotham and the GCPD for the abuse that they let Batman do. And that's kind of where it starts out in issue 2 with Jack actually going to court and talking about it. And that's kind of when the public's opinion kind of starts to sway kind of more towards Jack and that Batman's in the wrong.
So anyways, back to the thing I was trying to transition to, but I said it's a little bit too much. Yes, Harley is brought into the story. Harley becomes a main contributor, even though she still gives a really good, like, sideline-esque character. Like, when you read this story, you can definitely tell the story is not about Dix or Babs. It just doesn't feel that way. It doesn't flow. And then Harley's here, and it feels like Harley is just always right beside Jack, whatever he does, fully supporting him. But
Well, I mean, even before that, we have the whole scene with other Harley.
oh yeah,
When Jack goes to propose to her, and then she kind of freaks out, and she's like, "What are you talking about, Joker?" You know?
oh yeah, I forgot.
And then she tries to stop him from taking the pills, and that's when original Harley shows back up.
So this is the first issue of this series. So when I first read that, where it was like, "Oh, these two aren't the same person," I was kind of thrown for a loop. I'm like, "Am I missing something?" But no. Apparently, well, do we want to go in? Yeah, we can go into that. Apparently, he was so obsessed and with Batman that he refused to really kind of take in what was around him. I mean, he's a crazy man, yes, but he still had some things to his mind, I guess. But that scene was always fun, watching Harley beat Harley in
And then
Harley's uniform.
like, there's a lot of jumps because the main two characters of the story are Jack and Bruce. And so it kind of will always shift back and forth between those two. And kind of like right after the scene where other Harley, or original Harley, shows back up, it kind of jumps back to Victor Freeze and everything because they finally think they have a cure, and it turns out that, oh no, it's just going to age you immensely, and kind of then it jumps back again. It's kind of very interesting because it's still trying to show you, like, hey, this is still going on, they're still working on this.
Oh, speaking of the aging immensely, that scene, and like I said, it doesn't really flow, I feel, in this story unless you're looking at it from a very specific perspective. And at that point, it's him trying to desperately, once again, trying to find a cure for him to be able to get his wife back.
And then like, there's the interesting like dialogue there where he's like, now he's afraid because what if he does this cure ages her up because he's cured, but now he's old and he doesn't want his wife to lose that life. That's the whole point of her being frozen. He wanted her to still live out her life. It's a very interesting dynamic. And then as it kind of cuts back to Joker and Harley, and then we kind of find out what happened there, why there's a second Harley.
Before we get too much into that, I just want to point out there is some amazing, like you were talking about with the art and stuff. I cannot forget Bab's smile when she sees the little mice. And see, what's interesting is you were talking about how Dick is this, "Oh, I hate you, Batman. Why you do this to me?" And Babs is just like, "Guys, just fucking get along." And she's trying to make the most out of everything. It's almost like the devil and angel on your shoulder. Because Dick is definitely like, we need to do it kind of more of a grittier way. Though Batman is definitely like taking it to the extreme, Dick is definitely not a good advocate, not a good helper for Bruce.
And it feels like at times like Dick is just agitating Bruce more and antagonizing him at times to push his buttons intentionally.
Especially in that moment where they're all talking about in the lab. It's just, and then it just gets progressive. It goes downhill. It's interesting.
So, like I mentioned, we sort of kind of get to the point where we kind of see why original Harley left. And it all deals with the fact that Joker was so focused on Batman to the point where we see the whole Jason Todd death moment.
A death, in quotation marks.
Death, exactly, because, you watch as Harley tries to save Jason, and then she leaves. She goes to get Batman at this point in time, but by the time Batman gets there, Jason's gone. And at that point, that's when she just leaves.
There is specific dialogue.
He took it too far.
There is specific dialogue I do want to mention in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where she talks about how the charges were like really suppressed on her, or like, well, I don't remember the exact term for it, but the charges were lightened, very heavily so. And the reason why, she explains, is because of the fact that she stopped Batman from killing the Joker. So it's not. What's interesting is that this world has already been established. This may be the first issue in it, but this world has already had so many things happen to it. So many things that caused everything to kind of crumble at this point. So it's like we're just watching people pick up the pieces, which is a very interesting dynamic of a story that we kind of know, but now we don't, because there's definitely some main changes. I mean, I don't remember, well, for starters, I definitely remember Batman finding Jason Todd's dead body, the end of Death in the Family.
A very pivotal moment, like especially that original panel when he has him in his arms and everything. Very much an amazing panel, great, recognizable anywhere. And then, like the art in this one just stands out so differently, and I I love this art. I love how much it stands out, and the fact that we don't even see Jason's body is just so interesting. Because you think that, oh man, that's such a pivotal point. Why wouldn't they just reuse it? You know. But one of the things I do want to discuss is just actually one couple lines of dialogue, and it's after we kind of find out the backstory with Joker, Jason, Batman, Harley, all that stuff, and Jack is talking to Harley, and he asks, "Did Joker murder Robin?" And she tells him, "You're the only one who knows." And Jack's like, I don't know. I can't remember. And so there's this interesting kind of cutoff between Jack and Joker now completely, where even memories are being hidden. And that's honestly very interesting, because you'd think like his whole point is also making amends for everything he has done, but he also can't remember everything. And so it's like, what else is Joker hiding from Jack?
That is a very, very spooky concept. I do not like that concept. Reading about Jack gave me chills. The concept of it's you, but it's not you, and you can hurt the people that you care about, and you can just do whatever it takes to fulfill whatever fixations you want. And I also do want to point out, it is specifically mentioned in the storyline about how Joker in this version is a very, very smart man. Like, this...
Yeah, I think they said because they did IQ tests when he became Jack again, and they're like, he tested in like genius level IQ.
So, normally when we get like a Joker, the Joker isn't like some sort of super smart, witty guy. He is the Joker. He is this character. And seeing this one from this perspective is a very... Overall, this was a complete turn of what I was used to, and I'm so glad that I was able to read this. Like,
it is definitely one of my favorite stories, and like I said, the art style helps immensely. Like the art style just helps the atmosphere of the story immensely as well. Just it all works so well.
And we're not even halfway through the bullet points. Don't you worry. We still got more to go. Such as, like, the main arguable thing that kind of, like, drives this story is, I would argue, would be when Jack goes and has a quote-unquote tea party with all the villains. Jack slips in a little bit of spikes the tea with Clayface.
Yes. And... Sorry, I'm trying to think of the character's name. I don't know why Mad Hatter disappeared there for a second. So, yeah, what happens there is that he uses a little bit of Clayface in each of the drinks, and he had taken Mad Hatter's hat and stuck it to Clayface so that he could use Clayface as kind of like a drone for all of their bodies.
A catalyst, yeah.
Yeah, and so it's so interesting watching him just control them. But it also kind of shows that, like, once again, like at this point in time, like we've talked about how Jack was like, I'm going to do this by the book, to the law. And also we see this, shift of where he's like willing to get his hands dirty.
So it's him falling back into his past again. It's him used to being Joker. His ideas, he's a genius, and he could do whatever he wants to do. The problem is he doesn't have that moral compass. Batman has too much of that moral compass. He's like, you were Joker, I need to stop you. And Jack is trying to be as logical as easily it could be, because, I mean, this is all one cultivated plan to be able to lawfully bring someone down, even if he has to do some unlawful things in the background. Which, ain't that just what Batman is?
Exactly. And so it's like that, one of the things that, like, I'm going to mention, like, Harley actually says this later, but I love the line dialogue, is that she says that Jack and Bruce would have saved Gotham if they had just worked together and stopped being so stubborn. If they had just worked together, they would have shaped Gotham to be the best thing ever.
It's amazing how people can go in with the best intentions, but with poor execution, and just watch everything fall apart. So, with this in mind, after the whole Jack takes over Clayface, we'll get more into that as we progress. It goes back and hops back to Harley, or at this point she is known as Neo Joker, the different one, because basically after getting shipped to the curb, thanks to Harley curb stomping her, oh my gosh, that was a great scene watching the dogs and stuff. It was also, they brought back the puppies, which is great. I love puppies. She dresses up, and she is now Neo Joker, and she sits there and actually talks to Mad Hatter. Is that at this point?
Yes.
It is at this point? Okay. Talks to Mad Hatter, and she describes her past, which she was a poor, unfortunate soul, did not have a very good mentality ahead of her to begin with. Very dark things in her life.
And like we see the scene where Joker comes and kind of saves her. And so for her thing is it's the opposite of what kind of Joker had for or Harley had for Joker. Is that she loved Joker, she thought she could fix him. But this Harley loved Joker because she saved him. Kind of that like nurse moment, where, oh, I love my nurse because they saved me. It's a very interesting dynamic in comparison.
You get about a shake full of some mental problems that makes you assume every blonde girl's Harley. You also add in a spoonful of this girl already having really bad mentality issues, and then you add just a sprinkle of, I can't remember what I was going to say, but basically you bake that cake, and what you get is you get a woman that was already super depressed. Oh wait, you sprinkle a little bit of Stockholm Syndrome, almost forgot.
That's the word.
There it is. Sprinkle a little bit of Stockholm Syndrome and you get Neo Joker, who is this amazing character that, because of the fact that she, like you said, is just the complete opposite of Harley. And she was saved. And she talks about specifically how she expected him to treat her like garbage. She expected him to beat her, abuse her. But the only time he would ever touch her is to bandage her wounds. The only time they ever had any interaction, it was always nice, which, when you really think about it, it's just, wow. There's so many layers to everything.
No, exactly. 'Cause and Harley's whole thing is that she thought she could save Joker, make him Jack again. And so it's just a very, very interesting dynamic between the two, because that's also the argument throughout the rest of the series, is that Neo Joker loves the Joker, but Harley loved Jack. And that's like their whole argument. And then we kind of get these very fun scenes of Jack controlling all of those other villains, destroying parts of the city, and Bruce being Bruce goes ham, just full head, no thought into this fight.
So, funny that you say that. He knows it's a trap. Like, basically, at this point, like we said earlier, Clayface has taken over all their minds, but his mind's being taken over by Jack, so like this weird like hive mind kind of thing. So Batman is thinking the way he knows how. The way he knows how to do things is he needs to split them up, he needs to get the groups apart from each other, and he needs to have least civilian casualties as possible. So, in the grand scheme of things in the background that we haven't been necessarily talking about, Jack has been trying to advocate for the people, trying to be a people's person, trying to be like a Robin Hood-esque, I would argue. And so he's trying to build a library in Backport, all with apparently the best intentions. I just bumped my mic, that's going to sound horrible. So what Batman says is, that's a construction site, there's not going to be anyone there, we got to use that area. They're not going to just go destroy everything over there. That's not what they do. Because that's what he thought in the past. And he goes over there, and you'll never guess what happens.
Oh, it collapses 100%. And the building falls on top of Bruce, and Bruce gets fucked up.
Bruce is almost dead.
Yeah, Bruce is just covered in blood. He barely pulls himself out of it, and he refuses to let Nightwing and Barbara help him. They're like trying to help him, get him somewhere to, get fixed up, saved, but he's very adamant and just does it by himself again.
He follows his old protocols, follows his old situations, things like that. And I do want to point out that at this point, of course, this was an obvious trap. Everyone else could see it. Barbara warns him. Everyone knows. And then he just still falls victim, because this is the same pattern that he's used to. And this is also used for another questionably legal action by Jack, going in through the rubbish, or is it rubbish?
The rubble.
Rubble. I was close. I thought of garbage and rubble. Your face. And he goes in and he pulls out don't roll your eyes at me. He pulls out some documents that are going to help him in the case later. But was that the right way to go about it? I don't think so.
Yes, it's very, like I said, like we mentioned a few seconds ago, about the moral ambiguity of both Batman and Jack at this point in time, where they both use bad things to get the job done. It's very interesting. And then we see the scene where Bruce goes and sees Alfred while he's just bleeding out, and he cries over Alfred.
Hey, we should mention, Alfred has been hospitalized. Well, he's still in the Mr. Freeze's lab, which is I think still underneath. Or did it Mr. Freeze go to the
It's
back?
under Wayne Tech.
So okay. So nonetheless, he is still like in kind of like Bruce's custody. He is on his deathbed. Physically, this is the only time we ever actually see him open his eyes. Any other panel that he's been in, he's been sleeping. And Batman goes over, starts crying like you said, covered in blood. And this is when Alfred wakes up to see Bruce has passed out on the floor. So, what does Alfred do?
Alfred puts Bruce in the machine. Alfred sacrifices his life to save Bruce. Knowing that Alfred's dying, he knows that Bruce is worthy of saving still.
At least he hopes.
Exactly. And then we get the scenes of Jack revealing all the information of what he found in the law office. And we also get the funeral scene of Alfred and everything, and the kind of conflict between Dick and Batman. We kind of get a little more information on why that's happening. And do you want to go into detail about why there's that conflict?
This is arguably like one of the biggest changes to the main continuity, which I enjoy personally. It's see, normally it goes Nightwing, Jason, Tim, Damian.
Yes.
Yo, let's go. I haven't read the last two, but this time it's Jason then Nightwing. Apparently, Jason was like a son to him, and they had this father-son complex, and then that is when he was taken away from Batman, and that is kind of where it talks about how Batman started to slip. That was the beginning of everything falling apart. So now you get to understand more depth to Nightwing, because it's not just a conflict between, oh, I hate this guy, he's like my dad. It's I will never be good enough to be able to try to replace him. And I'm not trying to replace him, but that's all he sees through his eyes.
Mm-hmm. And we get this dialogue between Dick and Barbara, and she ends up talking about how the fact that Alfred was Bruce's moral bearing. Without him, nothing is protecting Gotham City from Batman besides them now. And so this is kind of where this dynamic shifts even more. Before they were really working with Batman, but now they're scared of what he will do.
It's very interesting to hear her say that we are his moral compass, when as of anything has been shown in this, he is not listening to any of them at all. They are not his moral compass. I would argue that they don't have enough say in anything he does. Mm-hmm. He just does whatever he wants to do at this point. Yes. And though that line is very, very well emotional and very good, I feel like everything they say is just in vain. Mm-hmm. And I think arguably that is the whole point of Barbara's character throughout this whole thing, is like, I am literally in the right. If you guys took the 2 seconds to let me explain everything.
100%. Like you said so far, there's this thing with the past. All these other characters are so focused on the past. Barbara is the compass of moving forward. Her whole thing is stop what you're doing and move forward. That's her whole point. And then at the very end of this issue, we kind of get to Neo Joker finding what Jack had done with Clayface and all the other villains.
Yeah, that was a pretty interesting scene. You get to see just the brain and just the eyes. The only remnants of Clayface that are actually human, and they have a little card sticking out, and I just imagine, I cringe whenever I think of the brain. Like, if I see a JPEG or like an image of the brain, I just, bleh. I don't like the look of it. But that panel was, sent me chills. So, now that we have that document, he killed 2 birds with 1 stone. Jack did. He got the documents he was talking about, but also he got Batman to destroy a library. And that is what he uses as a main catalyst for the town that it was supposed to be put in, Backports, to help gain a following to become councilman.
Yes.
I don't think he becomes councilman in these issues, though. Or does he become one at the end?
I think it's issue 5 that he officially becomes councilman.
Okay.
But yeah, so now he's kind of gearing up to run for councilman and everything. And the documents he finds is the Batman Devastation Fund.
Oh, the Devastation Fund for Batman.
Gotham has in place the Batman Devastation Fund. So pretty much it's like 3 or like an exorbitant amount of money a year, right? In the millions. And that's the whole point, is that Gotham has this money set aside to clean up Batman's messes, but will not protect Backport. And so that's his whole political standpoint.
Okay, and then also, speaking of this, the Devastation Fund, there is a little bit more of that a little bit earlier that I forgot to mention, where it shows how the rich profit from the fights. What they do is they put places that have the Batman Devastation Fund. You buy them right before the fund goes into play. You make a profit. You refurbish the house, sell, and it just keeps the 1% richer. Mm-hmm. It's because the 1% is so used to these gimmicks, these past things that they keep doing over and over again. So, since Batman goes to the same spots consecutively, why not make a profit out of it?
Exactly. And then kind of, like, so we're talking about how Jack is running for councilman and everything, and we actually see him at a rally and talking to everyone, trying to get everything happen, and then Batman comes in and just attacks him.
A peaceful protest, everyone's marching. They even sent in the documents, but the GCPD said it was technically pending, so it's very gray area of like if they had the actual authority. Gordon is also there. We haven't really been talking much about Gordon because Gordon doesn't make too much of a prominent scene. Mm-hmm. Gordon is... See, Batman Year One, we just got done making that video.
Yes.
I don't know when these will be uploaded consecutively, if not, but Batman Year One, Gordon and Bruce are the two main things, two main gimmicks. So seeing Gordon take a kind of like a side point is pretty interesting. Mm-hmm. And Gordon's still a kind of lawful good guy. He is much more of, don't worry about it, probably, I don't know, I heard a weird noise, whatever. Doesn't matter. We're talking about Batman. The ghost can wait. Mm-hmm. So, Gordon is definitely more of a lawful good kind of character in this. The one that everyone kind of expects him to be. So when the peaceful protest goes and another cop, I don't remember his name. It starts with, is it Dewey? No.
Let me see if I can find it real fast.
But anyways, he is the, Bullet? No. But the other cops are like, we need to put a stop to this. Gordon's like, no, they have a right to protest. Let it go. This is going to make us look bad and things like that. And then, so the main person of Backport, though that guy argues with the cop and
Duke.
So
Yep, Duke
nothing actually happens between the two of them. Just words are said and maybe the slightest amount of threats. And then Batman comes out of nowhere, proceeds to put Duke in a headlock and just throws one nice haymaker right into the face of Backport.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And it was Bullock and Gordon at the protest talking to them and everything. I just wanted to get that information real fast. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
And then, we kind of see the whole fight with Batman and everything. And then Jack gets in the back of a police car.
Willingly.
And so it's kind of the whole point of Jack trying to put up this persona of high and mighty.
He specifically mentions that, remember guys, I'm going willingly. We want this to keep peaceful. If it only takes me leaving to make it keep peaceful. It sounds very reminiscent of people from our history.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And so then at this point we kind of get the scenes of Jack and kind of revealing all the information he has about the Gotham devastation funds, the GTO, and stuff like that, where he's talking about how he wants to redistribute those funds instead of being used towards Batman, be used to leveling up the Gotham Police Department.
And speaking of the GTO, that it's going to be the new Gotham Force, the whole plan was made entirely by Jack, but he manages to try to convince Gordon to try to convince them. So, but anyways, they'll come more into play later. But the GTO, a new Gotham Force, or whatever it's called, it is very interesting because all of that is literally just, specifically, it is making things that are similar to Batman's stuff, like several Batmobiles. They also are allowing the people such as Dick and Babs to join. In fact, he goes and offers this to them. Mm-hmm. The thing is that they can even keep their secret identities as long as they wear something as simple as like a body camera, I think it was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a body camera and like a badge. They pretty much the whole point of the GTO is to hold them accountable, but would allow them to still do their job.
So they can keep their aliases, which allows them to do what they do, but now just, like you said, hold them accountable, which is a very interesting concept, because if it's just this easy, why have they not done it before?
Mm-hmm. And then, actually, there's another thing. I want to talk about one of your notes you have on here is about the newscasters. They are prominent throughout the story. They kind of pop up every so often, and there's one specifically who's very against everything that Jack's doing, very much like you always mentioned, focused on the past. That this is all just a sham. The Joker is still the Joker. Nothing we can do about it. There's the younger woman who's also part of the newscaster crew, and she's very adamant about the fact that this could be the future. This could be the next best thing for the city of Gotham.
The interesting thing is, since so many people are caught up in the past, no one is willing to take these steps forward unless they have a catalyst to do so. But can you really trust the catalyst if it's the Joker?
And that's the whole great argument of this story is just that. Can you trust the Joker if he's changed? He says he's changed, but has he?
Speaking of the New Gotham Force in the past, there is a point right after this where the villains are still technically... No, it's Neo Joker.
Controlling Neo Joker now.
Neo Joker at this point. Neo Joker comes in, and she's trying to be a main villain, not a sidekick. There's a funny little line in there with her and the Mad Hatter. But she breaks into GCPD, something that's never been done before, proven by Gordon's words himself. And she takes drives and also specifically destroys the bat signal. Mm-hmm. It falls off the top of the building, it breaks and shatters. And this leads to a confrontation between Batman and Jim Gordon, where Batman's like, I can just get you a new one. He's like, no, we don't need a new one. These ways haven't been working. You have been falling apart. How can I trust you if I don't even know who you are? So overall, this, I think, is not the climax, but it just helps further cement that Bruce is falling down.
Mm-hmm. He is spiraling.
Bruce is refusing to move forward, and since he is moving forward, the only way he can go is backward.
Mm-hmm. And then the perfect analogy of him going down while Jack on the hand is going up. Everything is working out for Jack. Has his councilman run and everything. He's doing great. He's got a lot of public opinion on his side. And he also proposes to Harley. And he has a really cute scene with her and everything. And then...
I like that scene.
And this is kind of where we finally get the argument between Neo Joker, original Harley, and Jack about how Neo Joker loved Joker. She wants Joker back. Harley's like, no, you're wrong. Stuff like that. That's actually in this issue.
We getting at this issue?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And kind of like you mentioned with the GTO and everything, I'm sorry. At the very end, that's where I wanted to get to. We get a little tidbit of some information that they stole, and it's about Victor Freeze.
Victor Freeze. Oh, yeah!
Mm-hmm.
I should not say this or else I'm going to make it very bad very quickly. How about you explain this?
So, Victor Freeze is a lot older than he seems, right? When you see him kind of finally get healed, he ages immensely, into his late 70s, maybe early 80s, I think. And you find out that he was a part of the Nazi team. He worked with the Nazis, and there's a picture of him shaking hands with Thomas and Martha Wayne.
Ba-ba-bum.
And so this is kind of a new thing where, once again, everyone's so focused on the past and how Bruce Wayne's this bad guy. And so it's a very interesting dynamic of how much of the past is affecting the future currently.
I also do want to point out, I think in this specific instance, it is also explained why they're shaking hands. So before we go and think, oh, Thomas Wayne was a Nazi. No, that's not true at all. Basically, in the past, him, Thomas Wayne, and Victor Freeze worked together for the Freeze Tech. Not for a weapon, but rather for medical purposes. It was actually Victor Freeze's father that's like, we can make a profit out of this for making it a weapon. Yeah. And since his father was technically in charge of everything, Thomas Wayne was removed from the project. And then the project was changed the name to Paperclip. Mm-hmm. See, I don't necessarily remember everything from that conversation. I just remember specifically it being called Paperclip.
Yes.
And that's just so dumb.
And that is actually kind of a little bit later. It's when Bruce and he comes to Victor about it. He's like, what the fuck? Why is my dad a Nazi? Yeah, exactly. And so we get this interesting kind of dynamic where Bruce is still very focused on the past. He's like, in his eyes, his parents were these perfect people. His dad was a healer, And so it's heartbreaking for Bruce to see that maybe they weren't as good as he thought. And there's a lot of secrets that he still doesn't know. And that's kind of what even Victor says to him. It's like, there's a lot of stuff you don't know, Bruce. You may be smart, but you're not smart.
And then that goes straight to his ego. He's like, oh, I'm supposed to know everything. Mm-hmm. I'm Batman.
And then we get an interesting scene with Neo Joker and the Mad Hatter breaking into Wayne Manor to gather more of that information about that file paperclip. And we get a very interesting scene where Bruce is down in the Batcave and he sees everything go off and he runs up and he's like, I gotta pretend I'm Bruce Wayne. So he puts on a fucking pink bathrobe. He's like, oh no, hooligans.
Oh no, dost thou knoweth where you lie? Get out of my fucking house.
And then after that, we see them run outside, and right as soon as that happens, someone pulls in a police car, and it's Nightwing. And we hear about the whole argument about the GTO and how they're working with him, and Bruce does not approve.
Meanwhile, the uniform that Dick wears in that does not do anything for his ass, but goddamn.
Makes him look tough as hell, though. It reminds me a lot of Leon Kennedy's outfit.
Oh,
From
I didn't put 2 and 2 together, but it looks so good. I love, like you said, the geometric patterns just work really well for a story like this. I feel just it's so nice. Mm-hmm. Even if you don't want to read it, just look at some pretty neat panels. Mm-hmm. Look at the background of this video. There's probably going to be like a panel or two maybe in here.
Yeah, there'll be tons and tons of panels. I promise. The art in this is just so amazing. I want to show it off. At this point, we watch as the GTO is chasing after Neo Joker. And they're all trying to go by the book and everything. And Batman shows up and kind of throws a wrench in everything, actually. And that's where we get the... I'm trying to think what it's called.
No, I can't save you this time. This was your part.
Yes. Sorry, we watch as the bridge just crumbles. And once again, this devastation fund, and everyone just is losing more and more faith in Batman as the story goes on, because he's just too dangerous. His anger is just pushing him in the wrong direction, and it's so dangerous for everyone. And then we kind of get the reveal of the giant fucking freeze ray at the end.
Fucking freeze way. Giant. It's a little giant freeze way, and what that does is it freezes things.
Good job, buddy. Good job.
Trust me, I hated that more than anyone that listened to this. I promise.
Alrighty. So at this point in time, this is where things really start to pick up speed towards the end.
Why'd you highlight? What are you going to do to
my
my
highlight?
notes?
Sorry.
What are you going to do to my notes?
So very much at this point in time, Jack and GTO's focus is taking down Batman.
Yes.
No longer working with him, they're ready to take him down.
Yes, but specifically, though, there is a very big argument on how they're taking him down. Gordon, the first thing is, we're doing it entirely by the books. We're going to unmask him. We're going to get Bruce. Does he know he's Bruce?
No, not at this point.
We're going to unmask him. We're going to get rid of him. That's going to be done. And Jack's like, no. He is Batman. We got to get him as Batman and then unmask him. Yes. And then Dick goes, no. He needs to stay unmasked. Batman is Batman. He should be held accountable for Batman.
Exactly.
And Babs is like, what the fuck?
Mm-hmm. And so it's a very interesting kind of argument and dynamic. And then as we kind of get going into this fight of capturing Batman, we see a couple more Batmobiles and everything. And we watch as they use EMPs and different technology to stop him with, obviously, the GTO fund.
So this is like the super cool part and super amazing stuff, and it's going to be super cool and so awesome. But I'm going to interject with it and discuss a little bit about the Bat family. We've been talking about it a lot lately, but while we were in the process of getting these notes, I just want to revel about the fact that what family is this? Why is it always talked about how it's the Bat family? When no one works with each other, no one gets along with each other, everyone's pulled up into Batman's antics. And once you get stuck here, you have too much responsibility to be able to leave. It's not a family, it's a prison.
Yeah, that's definitely a great dynamic. I mean, good way to look at it. Well, not necessarily a good way, I guess. Just that is honestly the way it does read at times.
I want to be Batman. This is what I want my family to be. I want to be Batman.
And one of the things that kind of is hinted at a few issues earlier is that Jack, when he takes down Batman, he wants to do it like a man. Fist-to-fist combat, right?
See, it's interesting because Batman is so hung up on the past that he gives up all of his leverage that he has against Jack. Because literally, this could be a fucking JoJo's reference. Jack just comes walking around the corner shirtless, by the way, which... Not important at all, but god damn, why is he shredded? and he's like, "Hey, Batman, come take me down. Listen, you want to fight me fist to fist, don't you?"
Like 100%, your argument this entire time is about the past, and 100% Batman thinks he can take the Joker in a fist fight because he's done it in the past. He's too arrogant in the fact that the past has worked that he goes into it and he ends up getting his shit rocked by fucking Jack.
That is arguably, it's so beautiful watching Jack just destroy him. And the best part is, it's like, there's no gimmicks to it. This is genuine, just man to man, and Jack just wins.
Yes, and it actually breaks Jack a little bit. Like, he actually breaks down and cries about it. He's like, he gave in to that part of the Joker that always wanted to take down Batman, and he literally starts crying. He's like, "What have I done? This is not what I was meant to do."
And with that, it starts the downward spiral.
And then at this point, Jack brings him into the GCPD, and at this point, Jack is very much agreeing with Nightwing. Mask stays on. Batman is Batman. We're charging him as Batman. That is all that matters. And then that's when the fucking giant freeze ray goes off. And so at this point in time, Gotham's kind of just in shambles. They're like, what's going on? What do we do? And we see, honestly, a very interesting panel of how they'd used the freeze ray to write Sin Joker on the buildings.
I wouldn't have wrote that personally. I would have written something very, very unprofessional.
Don't worry, I will put that picture up.
I would want to draw, you have a freeze ray that can draw anything you want to draw. It's a man thing. I would do it. For all the homies out there, I got you.
And so at this point, we see kind of as everyone's just lost and confused and just trying to figure out what's going on.
This freeze ray could kill millions of people if they just were inclined to do so. For some reason, they chose to send this one big message of saying, "Send Joker." But that freeze ray has so much prominence, so much power, that Gotham could be entirely obliterated. So, of course, everyone's in a panic.
And then, kind of at this point, we start seeing... Honestly, at this point in time, you kind of grow attached to Jack. And it's honestly, my opinion, very sad, watching as the pills stop working.
When it comes down to it, it's the whole point of, can you move forward? And if you can move forward, you get to see Jack for who he is. A truly great man that has been trying everything that he could to be able to save the town that he genuinely loves. Or the city that he genuinely loves. But at this moment, he falls back. There's a moment where he talks about how we'll just give her the Joker. And suddenly his eyes are the different colors. He's got that powdery face. All weapons are drawn against him in just as a surprise to everyone. And that moment kind of hits pretty hard. Whether you like Jack or not, the Joker is out, at least for a moment.
Exactly. He'll put the Joker back, but it's very sad because you watch how hard Jack is fighting to replace the Joker pretty much, but the Joker's still there. And so at this point, that's when we kind of get these final issues of Jack going to see Neo Joker and him showing her Joker and the whole thing with Harley, and she's like, you can't just, if you go to the Joker, you might not come back. You have to do something else. And that's when he goes back and is like, "Hey, yo, Batman, I need your help.
Please."
And you get this interesting argument once again between Jack and Bruce about how Jack is just the Joker. He's still angry, but Jack is fighting. I'm Jack. I'm not the Joker. I made Gotham a better place. And you get the argument once again about breaking the law to do something good. And Bruce is like, "You know what? Fine, I'll work with you. But I want a confession of all of the crimes you committed." Ooh. That is his one agreement. And Jack gives in.
Because at the end of the day, even if Joker's bad, Jack is not.
Exactly. And so then we kind of get the point where Bruce and Jack are working together now, and they start making their way to Neo Joker.
When you read this panel, when you read this whole overarching thing, this finale, the climax of everything that's been building up to, it feels kind of bittersweet.
Mm-hmm.
It's you know that everything's going to turn out okay. It's a comic book, or at least things will turn out all right at the very least. But also, this whole time, it's the dynamic of Jack fighting for himself. And I didn't mean to interject in between you, but watching Jack fighting Joker, there's some amazing scenes where it's not even a physical fight. It's all this is a mental game. And that's what I think I really enjoy about this comic book so much. I mean, this little bundle of comic books, a collection, is that it's not just physically, oh, I'm going to beat the shit out of you. It's how can you mentally better yourself for the sake of everything else. But anyways, I'll let you explain things more.
Yeah, absolutely. And so like I said, we're kind of in the car. We're going back to Neo Joker. And at this point in time, Bruce needs to know what happened to Jason. Once again, like I said, we've talked about how he's stuck in the past for so long. He's still there. He's still focused about Jason all these years later. And Jack's like, I don't know. And Bruce is like, well, then make him tell you. Make the Joker tell you. And Jack does. Jack gets the Joker to tell him what happened that night. And we find out that all the Joker wanted was Batman's real identity. And eventually Jason gives it up. And at that point, when he gives it up, Joker just lets him go. And we get this interesting moment where Batman, just the shock on his face of the fact that Jason's alive, but he never came home. And Jack kind of gives him like a heart-to-heart moment where it's like, he didn't come home because it wasn't just the Joker that broke him. You did, by making him Robin. And so then you kind of see like just this sad moment for Batman where he's like, maybe I am the fucking problem. And they have a good heart-to-heart, and they finally get back to the root of it, and Batman's like, did you know until now? And Jack's like, yeah, I've known. I've known the entire time. Like, he could have just said it, but he never once just revealed that Batman was Bruce Wayne. And so it's very much interesting dynamics that no matter what, even if at times Jack was playing off the rules, he still had respect for Batman and Bruce. And so it's a very interesting dynamic. So at this point, we kind of wrap up another storyline finally with Nora and Freeze.
Oh, yeah.
He does heal her, and
I forgot about this part. I wanted to get to the cool stuff.
I'm sorry, it's not quite there yet.
There's blue highlighted stuff
Yes,
that I want to talk
know.
about, but I forgot about the other stuff.
And so we get to the point where Nora's saved, and Freeze gives them the map to get to Neo Joker, or at least the canon is.
The freeze ray.
Mm-hmm. And then I will let you take up now.
All right. So start going, having a good time, playing some "Don't Stop Me Now" in the car as they are driving. I'm so glad we don't have that dance was okay. That could probably make it into Fortnite. But so they start driving. Batman is riding with Jack at this point, and I think there's a moment where he is still Jack, and then he transitions in the car.
Sorry, I'm looking real fast. Okay, yeah, no, it is Jack at this panel.
Yes. So they talk, have a little bit more of a heart-to-heart, have a buddy-buddy conversation, and then Joker appears. He's like, "Oh, it's the Batmobile! I'm so glad to be able to be sitting in here." And Batman's just kind of like dealing with it, tolerating it. It's kind of funny watching the two of them. But in superhero fashion, everything starts going. So one thing that I did specifically mention was the fact that Barbara was like, "Hey, yo, Batman, don't jump that bridge. That is closing. That is like being rising up." She says, "I'm going to do that in this moment." In a really cool panel of launching herself off ice to be able to get to, I think, the freeze ray. But nonetheless, in comic book fashion, everything's got to explode. So what happens is the ice machine, there's a whole confrontation, everyone fights and yada yada. There's some great panels of the Joker beating the shit out of Neo Joker, and that felt great watching the satisfying wha-bam. But what I'm trying to get to is the ending of that whole thing. Because, like, yeah, super cool comic fights, that's what everyone's probably here for. That's not what I'm here for. I'm here for the amazing dialogue at the end. Because because Batman entrusts Jack with the Batmobile. There's a certain scene where Batman throws the keys to Joker. He's like, I get the Batmobile? He's like, no, Jack does. Jack gets the Batmobile. And so Jack rides off with the Batmobile and with Harley, because Harley chooses to go with him too. And there is a point where the building is exploding, things are falling apart, and there's the doors.
Face breaks the car.
What?
I was trying to get to the point where, like, the reason that Harley gets launched from the car, sorry. I was just trying to go ahead. Okay.
I think we're thinking about two separate scenes. Clayface doesn't launch them there. But anyways, let me gush over my amazing fan fiction.
I will let you.
Let me fangirl, okay? So it's a super sweet scene where the explosions are falling behind him, and there's a very big, very big line that I love that happens is there's a door that's closing. They're not going to be able to make it. This car is going to explode. And conveniently enough, Neo Joker appears right next to them, and she's like, hey, I only have room for one more, so I guess I got to take the Joker. And Harley's like, yeah, it makes sense. Can't argue with that. I love you. Smooches by. And then Jack talks to her, and I wrote this line out because it's so good. It says, only you knew the Joker's biggest secret, that buried inside of him somewhere was a good man. And man presses a button on the Batmobile and launches basically this Batmobile is so cool because it has multiple pieces, including multiple vehicles. So it starts as a car, and then with the push of that button, it launches out a motorcycle fast enough to speed it away, make it through the doors in time, so that way Harley can make it out, and Jack, in what was thought would be his final act, his self-sacrificing act, and crashes. Batmobile explodes, supposed to die, but if he died, this wouldn't be a series. So, and another thing that's so great is, even though Batman's still living in the past, he still is desperately trying to hang on to his own morals and values, and due to this explosion, the whole thing starts to flood. And Batman goes back personally to save the Joker, even though this whole time he's been trying to just get rid of him. Mm-hmm. Because he still has that moral compass. So anyways, enough of me fangirling. What were you talking about?
Well, the whole reason, actually, why they had to do that is because Clayface is chasing after Joker after everything that he did to Clayface. Oh, and yeah. Clayface breaks the car so Jack can't slow down. That's why they're going to ram into the doors. Okay. And so that's why he ends up launching off that. Sorry. Yeah. That was my whole...
I didn't care about the premise. I cared about the emotion behind it.
And once again, I'm over here, and the emotion is very much there. Where Bruce finally kind of lets go of the past and is like, Jack deserved saving. And he's even there giving him CPR. And we end up getting this fight between Neo Joker and Harley.
Ooh, that was spicy.
Yes. Thing is that at this point in time, Harley doesn't know Jack lived. Oh, yeah. And so she believes 100% that because of Neo Joker, Jack is dead. And she's willing to kill Neo Joker. She is stabbing her,
Yo.
And just angry. And then we get Duke over the radio. Jack's alive. And then she stops. Immediately stops.
I love the complete 180 to this because when she gets the saying that Jack's alive, the panel of her angrily stabbing her, and then the next panel is her with the biggest smile on her face, Puddin', having Neo Joker on the back of the motorcycle. Oh, it's great.
Mm-hmm. And then once again, at this point, Jack's sadly not done sacrificing himself. He gives Batman the keys back, and he's like, it's time to take me back to Arkham before I completely revert back to Joker.
Let's do my confession.
Yes. And so they get there, it gets the confession, and they built Jack a new cell. And that's where we get a very interesting piece of dialogue in this one. He's like, this isn't the way to my cell. They're like, we built you a new one. It's more comfortable. He's like, but my old cell, it's where I learned about the Joker. And that is all this one's brushed as. That's all we get is learned about the Joker. What does that mean? You know? And we get into the cell, and Jack has a request to have the commissioner make sure that Harley and him are married before he reverts.
Such a sweet scene. Until it isn't.
And yes, and sadly, it doesn't work out. He starts reverting in the middle of it, and he says as I do as the Joker. And then that's kind of where that wraps up for him. You hear him just laughing, and that's where that ends. And we kind of get a very heartfelt scene once again. This last issue is very much heartfelt. And we finally get Bruce going back to see Dick and Barbara. And he has a very hard time revealing what it's about and the fact that it's a letter from Alfred when he passed. And he couldn't read it alone. And so he ends up reading it with them, and I would actually just like to kind of read through it because it's honestly very cute.
Good, because I read it through it the first time I read it, and when I was writing the notes, and I'm like, Anthony's got this.
It's all good. So I'll read. Bruce, I know you waited as long as possible before reading this, because you're too frightened to let me go, and because you don't know how to say goodbye. No doubt my death made you feel more alone than ever, causing you to retreat into that dark place where you think no one can find you. And you probably tried to push everyone away, convinced that only the isolation would give you the strength to return. But you were wrong. And that's always been hard for you to understand, that there's no strength in being alone. I'm happy you're finally reading this, because it means you now understand. It means Barbara and Richard are there with you, as I doubt you could have read this without them. It means you understand how their love is essential to moving forward. But most importantly, it means you're ready to say goodbye. Goodbye, my son, Alfred. And then there's a little PS. Check the loose floorboard in my something there you're ready to see. Woo. And so once again, we get that very strong note of the past and the whole fact that Bruce was focused on the past and now he's finally ready to move forward. And so we kind of start moving forward. We get the news outlet once again, and we get the big reveal of this entire time that Harley created the pills. Harley and Jack set this up the entire time. And Batman knows. And makes it kind of, once again, not as emotional scene, but you see the moment where Bruce just is still having a hard time conflicting with the Jack versus Joker moment. And the very last line he asks is, do you really think Jack's gone? And so it's a very interesting moment where he's still so conflicted.
And she just walks away. Thanks, bud. You're the one that actually has the psychiatric degrees, and you're just gonna leave him on a cliffhanger like that.
I mean, one of the questions he does try to ask her is about the discovering the Joker part. He's still kind of caught up on that. Like, he's figured everything else out, but he's confused. And she's like, I don't know. And
there's so many cliffhangers.
Yes. And that's honestly the point, because obviously they wanted to continue this. And it wraps up with Bruce coming to see Gordon. He gives the keys to all the Batmobiles, and it's like, you guys should use these. I should have shared my tech and stuff with you sooner. And then we get Bruce's confession.
Bruce's confession?
And the fact that he enjoyed hurting criminals, and that he is not fit to be Batman anymore. He is scared of himself, and Gordon's trying to tell him, like, no, Gotham still needs Batman, it's okay, and Batman's like, no, that's the whole point. Like, Jack beat us because I am not fit anymore. He's the reason, and he's like, it's the whole argument, like, Gordon's still like, we can fix this, and he's like, the city will eventually learn to trust you again. And Bruce is like, no, you guys can't trust me that way ever again. And he's like, the only way you'll truly trust me is if you know who I am. And he takes off the mask in front of Jim. And that's honestly where it ends at this point in time. And like I mentioned, there is still 3 more actual stories to read.
Are those collections or?
2 collections and then the 2 side stories that I kind of slump into one.
I do have the side stories.
Yes. Because like I said, my deluxe edition actually has the collection with the Von Fries, then Harley's its own standalone. Well, I guess there's also Red Hood as its own standalone.
So, nonetheless, a lot more to unfold after the story. But, overall, the story was really it kept me on the edge of my seat the entire time. I enjoyed it so much. I liked being able to see the dynamics of for starters, a darker Batman. It's a little bit refreshing, but I'm grateful this isn't our main continuity Batman. I like how we can keep things separate. I also really enjoyed being able to see the more depth into Jack, the Joker, this whole thing. And I've always liked I've always liked the reversal that they're kind of doing with Harley now, where she's becoming more of a good person. So, because, yeah.
I agree 100%. And honestly, there is not one moment of that book that I did not enjoy. When I picked it up the first time, I did not put it down till I finished it. I love that story. Like, the art is just amazing. The story, like, it's a very much darker and grittier story, but it is so entrancing reading it and going through it. It's so good. And like I said, I went through and I read through all of the rest, like, immediately after, and I'm so upset that I have to wait for more.
This is why I take my time.
I am not a patient man.
That is why I have not seen the new Spider-Man movie.
It was good. But at this point, I think at this point we should just kind of get our reviews out of the way and start wrapping up because we are already over an hour and 10 minutes.
That's fine. Hey, it's what we're passionate about. I'm sure they'll love it. Okay, quickest review possible, 10 out of 10. Story was great.
Yeah, 10 out of 10.
Story was great. Art was great. Everything about it was great. Got to see some more depth to the characters. It was nice seeing them act the way they act. Being able to see them have flaws and then try to overcome them. Even at the end, I would argue Batman still hasn't. He's still got a long way to go to overcome his flaws.
But he's working towards it, which is an amazing ending. And I agree 100%. It is a 10 out of 10. So that makes this our first 20 out of 20.
Only
that's our second video, but still.
Yeah, that's pretty good, though.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see if anything can ever match this. That's kind of the exciting part,
Ooh. Spider-Man issue 24?
No. No. Do you have anything else you'd like to discuss as we kind of start to wrap up, man?
Ooh. I feel we did a pretty good job. This story is definitely one that is one to hop into if you don't mind a little bit of a grittier storyline. I just feel overall this is definitely worth a read.
Oh, definitely. I could not recommend this book enough to people. But thank you for watching Batman White Knight Review. I am Anthony.
Are you? I was Anthony.
I'm actually Anthony.
And I'm actually Chris. All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.